So there's a lot of considerations when we're thinking about how to use color on a map. One of the considerations is what we're trying to map. If something does not have any sort of numeric value associated with it and you're just trying to show the difference between areas, you can use a qualitative color scheme. This shows an example of a qualitative color scheme that uses 5 different colors. And this is from colorbrewer2.org, Cynthia Brewer's website that talks about color, and that's very interactive that you can check out. And if we kind of focus on this area here, where there's a lot of local variations in the colors that we're using, we can see how those colors work effectively together. So this would be something where there's no indication of some cost of living is increasing or decreasing or anything like that. It's just that we're trying to distinguish the various areas by applying different colors to them. This scheme from Color Brewer uses 5 different colors. You can set that here at the top to any number that you like, but it turns out if you're trying to make a map and you just don't want the same color touching in any area, all you really need is 4 different colors. So this just shows an example of a map of the United States, maybe like one you made in grade school or colored at some point, where all the states are clearly distinguishable because they have different qualitative colors associated with them, and none of the adjacent colors are the same. You can always do that with 4 different colors. Another type of color scheme is sequential, and this would be if something was increasing or decreasing and you were trying to show those increases or decreases. So this could be something like, for example, the cost of living, where it's higher and where it's lower. With sequential color schemes, we typically we can vary the hue, the saturation, and the value. Here we're going from a yellowish hue to a bluish hue through a greenish and a lighter blue hue. But this could also have variations in it associated with the value, which is how much darkness or black is in it. And it could also be the saturation of the colors. For example, both of these might be blue, but one is a more saturated or a richer blue than the other blue. So we want to try to think about our HSV values as we go through these things, take advantage of things that are naturally light colors for the low values, and take advantage of colors that are naturally darker colors for the high values. So this would be an example of a sequential color scheme, and you can see several other ones up here. All or most of these have been incorporated into many of the software packages like ArcGIS and others. And here's an example of a sequential map that's showing unemployment back in June of 2010. And we can clearly see where unemployment rates are lower, and then where unemployment rates are higher, both at a national and a more local or regional level. And all we're doing here is we're starting out with a light orange, and then we're going to a very dark orange by varying both the saturation and the darkness of that color. So once again, you can think about that in terms of the HSV color scale. We're keeping about the same hue of orange, but we're varying how rich the color is, which is its saturation, and we're varying how dark it is, which is value. The value is increasing. So this, I think, is a very good use of that. Sometimes we see maps like this, which is sometimes called a rainbow color scheme, or it goes throughout the entire spectrum. Especially weather maps seem to use this. Most cartographers would argue that rainbow color schemes aren't very good. It does make an interesting and very colorful map, but a lot of people in their mind just can't put those colors in order very easily. So they're not quite able to tell what the difference between green and orange are. It could be intuitive that some of the colors are hotter and some are colder, but still, if you just gave them little squares of each of those colors, they would not easily be able to order those from hottest to coldest. But on the previous map, going from light orange to a darker, richer orange, people are very easily able to see the order in those sorts of sequential colors. So this would not be a good choice for a sequential color scheme, even though it follows the spectral pattern or the rainbow pattern of the colors. A third type of color scheme is called a divergent color scheme. So a divergent color scheme might be when you have an average value in the middle, and you want to show colors that are richer and darker based on how far away some values are from the average. So once again, this is the color brewer, and it's showing a divergent color scheme, which we're selecting here. In this case, we have 9 classes, which means the number of different colors that we're going to use in our legend. And this is defining them as RGB values. And that's just how much red, how much green, and how much blue would make up each one of these colors here. So that you could set that in any other software package that you wanted to. And this would be an example of a divergent color scheme. This is from NPR, and it's showing how much different school districts spend per student. And so once again, we're able to see some real regional trends here. Like New York State is all very high, but then we're also able to see some very local trends as we go from more affluent school districts to less affluent school districts. You can see that the lightest kind of light yellowish color is in the middle, then they go through an orange and red. So somewhat changing hues here, but also changing darkness. And in this direction here, going from a more cyan to a darker blue, once again changing hues and changing darkness and saturation as well. This is actually a color scheme that's specifically designed for colorblind people. So even people with some color blindness would be able to distinguish the colors on this map, which is not always the case and is another consideration when making maps.